Hi, I'm Katrina, and this is Boldly Challenging Ableism. I'm your host, Katrina Simons. I'm the Community Program Specialist at the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. This program explores various topics that impact people with disabilities in our community. Each episode addresses a different aspect of our society within the context of ableism. Ableism is the prejudice that stems from the belief or belief system that assumes someone is less capable or less worthy because of a real or perceived difference in ability or function. On this program, we hope to answer some questions you may have been afraid to ask, or maybe some you didn't even know you had. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Welcome to Boldly, everybody. Our guest today on Boldly is BJ Stasio.
Hello.
Hi, BJ. Thanks for coming.
No problem.
We really appreciate it. And like I was saying earlier, BJ and I have not met. So this is my first time. Although BJ has videos on our website that's called Self-Advocacy Online. And so I did my homework, and I kind of feel like I know you now because you have so many videos on there, and I watched them all. They was so enlightening.
Not too many people do their homework, so I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, BJ?
Absolutely. I'm BJ Stasio from the lovely Western New York, specifically Buffalo, where snow happens during the winter and sometimes before the winter. I consider myself a disability rights advocate and activist, not a self-advocate, because I advocate for everybody.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how you got to your journey to become an activist?
At 16, I wanted to go to dinner with my family.
Okay.
The place that just opened was not accessible. So I called them. I said I would like to get into your restaurant because my family loves Greek food. I could care less for Greek food, but it wasn't about me. It was about being with them.
Okay.
So when I asked them, why do I have to go through the kitchen? And they showed me the front. It had stairs, even though the ADA was just passed. And they could have put a ramp in, and they refused.
We're talking like 91 or 92 here for this one?
Yes.
Just for context for some of our listeners, the ADA was passed in 1990, and the ADA is the law or the set of laws that makes it so that every public establishment needs to be accessible.
So I decided to get a group of my friends with disabilities together so we could protest the lack of access. And I chose to do something pointed and so controversial and probably not smart. The cement in front of the restaurant was not dry yet.
Oh my.
So I drove into the not dry sidewalk with the cement, and it dried around my wheels.
So I'm just going to paint a little picture. So you're in a power wheelchair, right?
That is correct.
So it has two drive wheels, which are usually 14 to 16 inches. Some are 12, but mostly 14 to 16. And then it has two casters in the front. And then it would maybe have two casters in the back and maybe not. But it would have tread. So the cement would kind of get stuck in the tread, and the treads would make marks in the cement.
That is correct.
Yes. So driving through it is kind of a big deal.
They weren't too happy.
Right.
So they realized they had to find 4 people to get me out. And it made me laugh so much because they were struggling and couldn't figure it out. Because I didn't tell them where my manual brakes were.
Right.
Because I wanted them to learn a lesson.
Right, because you had to commit now that you had driven through the cement.
Yes.
Right.
And I go back to the restaurant now, and it still doesn't have a ramp. So every chance I get, I tell people with developmental disabilities like myself not to go there.
Okay.
Believe me, when the Godfather says not to go there, they don't.
Okay, so that was in like 92.
Yes.
So talk a little bit more about what happened next in your journey.
I ended up taking a class trip later that year, which was extremely boring, to be honest, because I knew about history, so nobody had to tell me again. And I was like, where's the fun if we travel all the way from Western New York to Washington? And it happened to be the day of the signing of the ADA in the Rose Garden.
Okay.
So I saw a group of people with disabilities going toward the White House. I said that would be more fun than sitting here learning about history. So I did that. I was gone for like 4 hours and nobody knew I was gone until I returned to the hotel and told them I have fun and thank you.
Okay, and there wasn't like somebody that was supposed to be like, making sure you didn't wander off from the group or something?
Of course there was.
Okay.
But I told my friend of 40 years now to look out for me and not tell anyone.
Okay.
And he laughed. He said, that would be more fun than telling them where you are.
So he played along.
So he kind of is like me and likes to stir up trouble.
Well, I mean, I guess I wouldn't really expect you to have a friend that didn't like to stir up trouble. You seem like you find your other rebel rousers.
Yes, I have many friends who will do that now because I tell them it's the thing to do if you want to create change.
BJ, today your topic for like the podcast today was the difference between an advocate and a self-advocate.
There really isn't a difference. It's just words because self-advocate does advocate for oneself and others by doing what they do. But advocate is more meaningful to me because to me it means I'm a strong believer in what I believe in. And there is no gray area with me when I want to fight for something. I will not quit until I get the answer that makes sense to me. And I always tell people who I work with and know, you have a right to ask why. And if the first why doesn't satisfy what you asked, ask another why. And then have a discussion about why did you say why.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, during the staffing crisis here in 2023, due to the after effects of COVID, I had an opportunity to speak to the New York State Senate Disability Committee. And I happen to be friends with the chair of the Disability Committee because we grew that relationship. And I was very honest and spoke my truth. That's what everybody has to do, is speak their truth. And after I was done, he was asking me questions. And I was very honest. And he got choked up about one question because I said, when I go to grocery stores with my self-direction staff, because I didn't have personal care staff at the time to get me up, and my self-direction staff are not allowed to do that by regulation of Office for People with Disabilities of New York State. And, it was like, I said, I go to grocery stores with them, and I'll go up to people and say, you look like you need a job and you need to work with me. And I did that a lot. And I said that during my testimony. And when he asked me a follow-up question, he started to cry and said, we love you. You shouldn't have to do that, even though you're a good recruiter.
A lot of people with disabilities BJ and myself included, need support every day to get out of bed and go to bed and to do things that other people do without any support at all. So things like go to the grocery store, go to work, just everyday things. And right now, we've kind of hit a crisis point where many people don't have that staff available to them. So I think that's what BJ was referring to in his narrative that he just shared with us. Yes?
Yes. Most people, just for clarity, end up in nursing homes and situations where they don't want to be because it takes away your choice of having that good life and the life you want for yourself.
BJ, how did you get up and go to bed during that time when you didn't have any staff to do that for you?
Honestly, I'm not embarrassed to say I slept in my chair for 2.5 years.
Okay, 2.5, that's a long time.
Because I couldn't, miss work and not help the people I value as my family.
Right.
I had to be there for them because nobody else would be or could be, because I was the only one really who understand their situation. Because group home staff, and I don't mean offense by this statement, but I believe it, don't know how to support someone to live their life in a group home. It's just about getting the job done, make sure they're fed and safe. Like, I remember a story where somebody saw my tattoos and he said to me, I'd love to get tattoos, but the team who supports me said no. So I said, what I'm going to do for you is call my tattoo artist and have him make a sleeve of your favorite things so you could wear the sleeve and see if you like it. He ended up advocating for himself at his ISP meeting, now called Life Plan meeting, where he said that. And once you say that, it's documented and it has to be done because it matters to you.
I would push back a little bit on what you said about staff that works in a group home not knowing how to support somebody's life vision and the things that they want. There are group home staff that are excellent at that, and there are group home staff that really struggle with that. And there are group home staff that would really like to be good at that and don't have the capacity to do it because the staffing shortages are so severe. But I would agree that people are given more choice when they live in the community just by the nature of sort of how that dynamic works and plays out.
That is very true, Katrina. And I have many staff who understand, but the average staff person coming in doesn't really understand what it is to be person-centered because they're all about meeting the regulations.
Right. They're just trying to get through the day.
Keeping their job.
Mm-hmm. BJ, you said earlier that you had several nonprofits. Can you talk to us a little bit about those?
Sure. One of the nonprofits that I have that I have a lot of support for is Buffalo Racing, which is an organization that supports people with disabilities to be in 5Ks, which is a 3-mile race.
Right. 3.2, right?
Correct. And we have people who are runners who push an accessible chair that we put them in. We make sure it's comfortable because they have to sit in it for 3.2 miles. And that's all because my coworkers from Office for People with Developmental Disabilities thought it would be cool for me to participate. And the organizers of the corporate challenge, which my friends and coworkers were doing, said no to me because I use a wheelchair and it's not safe for him and for people running. And I was very angry about that. I got some of my coworkers and a friend together who is a runner, and said, I want to do that. Start a nonprofit to support people with disabilities. And they followed my lead, and we had that nonprofit for 10 years until people were busy with their life and kind of dropped out.
Okay.
And the other nonprofit, which just became a nonprofit because the paperwork is very difficult to fill out, is Art of Advocacy, which teaches people the skills to be a better advocate, such as telling your story, because telling your story is very unique to the person. And some people haven't had experience telling their story. And then the second step is to tell your story to a group. And the third step is meeting your legislator and asking them to help you with a project or an issue that matters to you. Then the fourth step is just, following through on something that you believe in and getting people to support you. And the fifth step is just meeting all the four steps and becoming a master of advocacy, because you remember and have confidence to do all the previous things that I mentioned.
Is it like a class then, and they go through all the steps, or how's it sort of like formatted?
Well, it's not so much a class. You learn at your own pace, because everybody with developmental disabilities learns differently and needs different things to learn.
That's true.
And it's not time sensitive. It's at your own pace, as I said. But I'm there to support them, and so is the family advocate who I talked to, and he believed in what I wanted to do, and he's a great support. And I love him for believing in what I believe in, because everybody needs that support and somebody else to believe in, so you can vent and share your frustration and share the victories that you have as life goes on.
Yeah, everybody needs their team, their village.
Yes.
You have done a lot of training on person-centered thinking and person-centered planning. What is kind of a nutshell summary you can give us about that?
Person-centered planning, in a nutshell, is what you want for your dreams and how to document it and show it to people and get the support that you need. Now, sometimes things are in the red zone, which are impossible to do. So you want to move it to the yellow zone, which is you're working on it, and that's okay, and there's no time frame. And then you want to get the yellow into the green, and that happens with the appropriate supports for you and believing in yourself. The whole thing about person-centered planning is to believe in yourself and not give up on your dreams. It's just when you document it like that, like I mentioned, people can then see your dreams, because guaranteed they didn't know about it if you don't know how to tell your story, because you're nervous about being judged for telling your story and being told you can't do that. Like, I was told I would never get a job because my degree is actually in computer programming.
Wow.
I kind of fell into advocacy by a wonderful accident, and I have no regrets for that happening, because it has changed my life, and I realize it has changed other people's lives.
Okay, so I'm going to just summarize what I think you said person-centered planning and person-centered thinking is. So person-centered planning and person-centered thinking is a way of sort of taking a specific systematic approach to asking how we can balance what a person needs and what a person wants. And the reason it's so important for disabilities is because we often forget to do it when we're providing supports for someone and they have like a health condition or a disability or really any circumstance, because we spend all our time thinking about what they need and we forget to think about what they want. And it's really only recently in history that we've decided that it's important to hold staff members and people who do the paperwork side of supporting people with disabilities responsible for giving people what they want as much as giving them what they need.
Yes.
But then, BJ, I was wondering if you could give us an example of one of those goals that you had that was first in the red zone and then moved to the yellow zone and then moved to the green zone.
Sure. I always wanted to, live on my own with the supports. And it was in the red zone because it was not really thought about. Like the first thing people thought about when looking at me when I was in my 20s, that a group home would be appropriate for me, a group home placement. So that thought was in the red zone because my family called the regional office of OPWDD, Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, which is in West Seneca still currently, West Seneca, New York. And they said, my family said that I needed a group home because they didn't think I could protect myself or do anything. I'm not angry at them for that because I never really shared my thoughts or my wants with them. They were private to me. So I kind of took a flyer and said to my family, I would like to live on my own with supports and then get a job so I could support myself better. And all that happened, and it was divine intervention, I believe.
So right now you live on your own with the support from paid staff, and do you have natural supports as well?
Well, yes, it's funny. I have a good natural support, which happens to be my councilman for the city of Buffalo, where I live. And how that happened, he took a walk with me because I said to him after a meeting, I need you to take a walk with me. So he did a couple days later. So I took him on a bridge I always have to cross to my favorite place, which is a restaurant and entertainment center. And I showed him what was not accessible. Of course, I did something that I wasn't going to tell him because he would probably stop me. Because when I got to the non-accessible point, I drove my chair off the curb and it happened to jump onto the bridge where thankfully I landed on my wheels and just took off. And he, during the staffing crisis, became my natural support and said, I'm going to help you get up and get to bed because you have things you need to do. And I know they matter to you and they matter to me because they change everybody's lives. And meeting you has changed my life.
Wow. That's a great story. So, BJ, there's a theme, and it seems to be that you kind of like danger.
Well, I like doing things which are not expected because why would a person with a disability put themselves at risk? But I always believe in a dignity of risk, which is very important because if you don't live with risk, you're not really living your life. It is my belief you're living somebody else's life because they want to protect you and keep you safe.
All right, BJ, we're going to wrap up. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up?
Well, please just believe in yourself because you matter and your thoughts matter. And if you don't get what you want right away, it's okay. Just continue to ask why and believe in yourself because, as I said, you do matter and you can change society's thought just by being visible instead of invisible. And I always say, if you're on the sidelines waiting for things to change, nobody can see you, and things won't change if you don't do what you need to do to make a change, because only you're gonna make the change, because the system, or let's say the county, the state, or the federal government doesn't know until you tell them.
All right. Thank you. That's a great message to close on.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for coming.
No problem.
We'll probably cross paths sooner rather than later.
I hope so.
Boldly Challenging Ableism is a co-production of AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. For more information, please visit ici.umn.edu.